What's good, people? Agent Juice reporting for duty. Today's episode of Making Cartoons will be a speed paint of one of the supporting characters of Meanie and Happyland, the prim and proper, too dapper for the crapper, Willard T. Frumpkin III. Willard is the leader of Happy Garden, the local chapter of the Happy Helpers that resides in the quaint little town of Dafodale. As a quick aside, the town of Dafodale is where the majority of the show takes place. Think of it like the Ponyville of Meanie and Happyland. Anyway, as chapter leader, one of Willard's responsibilities is to oversee prospective Happy Helper students and decide whether or not they're ready to take the final test to become a full-fledged Happy Helper. But when he clears Melody for that final test, and she comes back with Adon, this hulking grump of a pig, in tow, he's more than a little bit skeptical at first. It's not until Melody practically begs for him to give her a chance that Willard reluctantly agrees to let Melody help Adon, but he wishes to keep a close eye on Adon. You know, just in case. So with the intro out of the way, let's talk design. As I mentioned in my previous video, where I speed painted Melody, the first goal of designing any of the critters is that they have to look cute, and that's achieved through neoteny. My second goal of this particular design, that is unique to Willard, is to make him look well-dressed and well-learned. If I were to describe Willard in one word, I would say that he is a pedagogue. He's staunch and straight-laced, but he's also observant and even fatherly. Also, let's just say that he's well-connected. You know, like he got some friends in high places. With all that said, about his personality, I, of course, want to reflect that in his design as well. So to start off, I gave him a nice suit, complete with a big old bow tie and a nice bowler hat to top it all off. Now, I'm not a fashion guy, so I don't know the nuances of making a fancy suit look all nice and, well, fancy. But for those of you out there who do know what makes a suit extra dapper, that's what Willard would be wearing. But as we all know, the clothing is only half the story. I also want Willard to have a dumpy figure, a soft-spoken face, and of course the trademark fluffy gentleman's mustache. Basically, I want him to look like a stereotypical paunchy British man. The helpful thing about making Willard look so stereotypical is that you can take one look at him and pretty much understand everything you need to know about him. Now, before we move on, I do want to cover two brief asides. First off, even though he is a koala, I don't want him to have an Australian accent. If anything, I want him to sound like Mark Hamill's impression of Alec Guinness.
Well, I'd always wanted to portray a wizard in a children's film.
Second aside, you'll notice that at the beginning of the speed paint, I have semi-transparent images of Melody and Adon that I use to measure Willard's gesture lines before getting into the drawing. I did this because, as you may have guessed, I want to have size consistency in the cast. Not only because that's good practice in creating character design, but I actually want all the critters, or at least the main and reoccurring characters, to be pretty much the same size. And I'm doing that for two main reasons. The first main reason is because it just makes measuring things easier. It's the lazy way out, and yes, I know that, but you know what? At least I'm being honest about it. The second reason is because the whole joke behind Euphoria, and really the whole joke behind Meanie and Happyland in general, is that it's a show about two entirely different worlds being forced to cohabitate. In the case of Euphoria and the critters, I want to design the visual aesthetics as if I were going to make a legitimate children's cartoon in the same vein as My Little Pony or Care Bears or Little's Pet Shop or da-da-da-da-da. You get the point. And in those cutesy child-friendly shows, they do this thing where their character design is basically a template that all the characters are based on. And then when they want to make a different character, they just switch around hair and color scheme and other random accoutrements to differentiate the designs. I want to emulate that template look for the critters, but at the same time, I do want them to be a little unique in their shape. So I make up the difference by just making them all more or less the same height, with, of course, the obvious exception of Adon. So anyway, with all that said, let's get back into the art. And I guess the next thing to touch up on would be the color scheme. I purposely wanted to go with a bright blue suit because I initially didn't want to make a bright blue suit. So why did I change my mind? Honestly, it was the same reason I gave Melody that purple turtleneck. I wanted to purposefully dress Willard in such a way as to be visually irritating to someone like Adon. Originally, Willard's suit was going to be something boring and unassuming, like maybe a gray or a brown or some kind of muted tweed look. I opted against that, first off because his fur color was already going to be gray, so I wanted a bit of contrast to that, and also because in addition to the bright colors being garish, I figured that someone who's supposed to be in charge of an organization all about being happy and chipper should at least dress in some kind of fun color. And fun, in this case, being in some heavy quotation marks. Now, you've probably noticed that throughout this speed paint, I've been referring to an earlier design of Willard. And in this earlier design, you may have noticed that his eyes are blue. But I'm not making them blue in this new design. I made this change primarily because there's actually a story reason why I don't want his eyes to be blue. What is that story reason? Well, you'll actually have to watch the show once it's made to find that one out. The second reason why I changed it is because I didn't want his eyes to match his suit. And yes, I'm aware that it's a big thing in fashion for clothing to match the eyes, but I didn't want to change his suit color just so it would match his new eyes. And that being said, with all designs, this one may change, and I may end up changing his suit color to match his eyes. But honestly, I'm not going to bother with it unless a lot of people make a stink about it, or put up some kind of good argument for it. Anyway, to conclude all of this, I want Willard's design to communicate his prim and proper personality, as well as hint at his hidden wealth of knowledge and connections. I want his design to say, "Yes, I do like to run a good tight ship, and I keep my moustache combs in alphabetical order. And I believe that my old traditional ways of kindness and proper, orderly friendship are the correct ways to be a good citizen. And anything that runs against these beliefs are rather unorthodox. But if you insist on trying something new, I suppose I'll allow it. But be aware that I'll be keeping my eye on you." So, did I succeed my goal? Comment below and let me know. Also, if you like this content and would like to see more of it, put your hands together in prayer and press the sacred YouTube buttons in order to appease our machine god algorithm and help out the channel. Also, feel free to hit up my social media links in the description down below. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoy this content. I hope you guys stick around. And until next time, deuces.